Hey everybody, Ginger on Wheels here. I am at the park by my house and I came here with my gimbal to explain to you how to set up your D4 Plus. Maybe you just bought your D4 Plus and it's sitting in the box at your house and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is from China. I know I need to fix it up before I ride it and I really want it to be safe. So these are the things that I would recommend doing to your scooter before you take it out for that maiden voyage. First, you're going to notice that everything on your handlebar assembly is loose. So you're going to want to take the Allen key that was supplied with your scooter, or if you don't have one, it's just a simple hex wrench. You're going to want to go through and tighten everything up on your handlebars. There's a brake lever, the controller, the boost and eco switch, the ignition, the on and off and horn, and then both the brakes. So those are all things that you're going to have to tighten. They all have little bolts and nuts hidden all around here that you just have to look and find. I would recommend setting them up in a way that will still allow you to slide these black things off to the side, because unless you can slide those out to the side, you won't be able to fold your handlebars down. So keep that in mind when you're tightening everything up. The second thing I would recommend doing is taking off the stock grips that come with your scooter. You can either just replace them entirely with mountain bike grips like I did here. Those are $10 on Amazon. Or you can take your stock grips and spray hairspray inside and then slide them back on the end of the tube. And if you do that, once the hairspray dries, it'll get nice and sticky, and they do stick on the bars a little better. Keep in mind though that the stock grips go longer than the bar does, so the end of the grip will bend a little bit. The next thing I'd recommend doing is tightening these two little bolts right here. They will come loose and they're in charge of this clamping mechanism here. So once you get those tightened, unclamp your clamp, tighten this as tight as you can get it, and just smash the clamp on there. Your handlebars will wiggle side to side while your wheel stays in the same spot unless that clamp is really tight. You are going to have to tighten these two bezel pieces. You want to get two big vice grips and clamp one on the top and one on the bottom, and you turn the top one right and turn the bottom one, or you just hold it, I guess, but they both need to be tightened. Brings me to another good point. All these bolts up here for your assemblies, if you're sure they're in the right spot and you're never going to need to move them, I would highly recommend Loctiting them, because it'll probably come loose. Most things on this scooter seem to have a habit of coming loose. These two bolts right here, all the bolts I mentioned up here, these two, these four, I would highly recommend Loctiting all of those. So you just take the screw out, squirt some Loctite on it, put the screw back in, good to go. I've never had any issues with my main wheel bolts coming loose, but it's always safe to check those. That's a 19mm. Just pop a socket on there and make sure it's really tight. Yours will have a rubber cap on there that comes with it. Mine popped off in a few rides, but it's got a little zip tie that you can zip tie the rubber cap on there. Keep it on there a little better. I guess it's for waterproofing. I don't know that you need it necessarily, but it's cool to have. The light. This light is wobbly, and I highly recommend just taking your scooter outside or even inside and just lining the light up how you want it, and then tighten this and tighten this so that your light won't move, because it's really annoying when you're on a ride and you hit a bump and then your whole light changes. Suspension pieces, these will need to be periodically tightened over time. You can't Loctite these because you need to remove them if you want to get the front wheel off. But what you do is take a 19mm socket on the top here, and then take a hex wrench up the bottom, and once you have the hex wrench up on the bottom, you can turn the wrench while you're holding the top piece, and it'll tighten the bolt inside the suspension. The latching mechanism is on its side, and underneath you can see there's a bolt. You can't see, but there is a bolt, trust me, up inside of here that you need to tighten. It's like a 10mm socket bolt, and once you tighten that, you'll be able to tighten this red latch much tighter, and your folding mechanism won't jiggle. I should explain a little bit more about the latch actually. You want that bolt, so when this red thing is loose, that bolt should be semi-tight, and when you push this red thing up, this should be very, very snug. If it's loose, if it's really loose when you push it in there, then you need to go back under and tighten this bolt up some more. If it's too tight and you can't get this parallel with your folding mechanism, then you need to go underneath and loosen it a little. But you want to find that sweet spot so it's perfect and you can just smash it right in there, and then your folding mechanism won't move. The deck has 10 hex bolts you need to take off. Pop that baby off, slap some grip tape on there. I highly recommend it. This is like for me, I wouldn't ride the scooter again without having grip tape on the sides. I don't know why Nanrobot just put that little strip down the middle, but my feet were slipping off the edges of the scooter all the time. It really scared me. So that helps, and it's only like $5–10 bucks. Definitely a worthwhile upgrade. The kickstand's got 2 little bolts. Want to make sure those are snug, and these are bolts that you can Loctite. You're never gonna need to get those out. The fender on the scooter does not come on the scooter. You have to put it on yourself, as I'm sure you noticed. So make sure you did a good job tightening these up. And I think you have to put these little red dealy bobs on too. You can Loctite those. They're never gonna need to come off. I did make a brake video on how to adjust your brakes. I'll post that in the top of this video now. But I highly recommend doing that brake adjustment. You'll get way better stopping power out of your disc brakes. This brake cable in the back. There have been reports of this cable getting stuck in the holes here as the tire rotates and completely locking the tire. And there was one guy who said he fell off and fractured his arm. So I bent mine up like this just to keep them out of the way of the spinning discs on the front and back. I highly recommend you do the same. These 2 bolts, there's bolts here and then there's nuts on the other side. You don't want to tighten those up too much because that will affect how responsive your rear suspension is. So you can't Loctite them, you can't over tighten them, you just have to make them snug. They do a pretty good job of staying, like without, having to tighten them every scooter ride, but it is something that you do need to periodically check. And with the rear bolts, I've never had them come loose, but that's such a big deal that I would still recommend making sure that your rear bolts are tight before you go out for the maiden ride. Last thing I think you need to do is tires. Get a bike pump, make sure that your PSI in the front and rear tires is around 45. Max for the scooter is 50, so 45 should keep your tires from popping. And once you get all that done, your scooter should be set up and you'll be ready to go on your maiden voyage. Hope that was helpful. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks.